94XO, it's MonneXo here at Union Station, and I'm going to be interviewing St. Louis native and author NiNi Harris about her newest book, Downtown St. Louis, the second edition. Stay tuned. You're watching 94XO. So NiNi, you have released your book, Downtown St. Louis, the second edition. So this is the second edition. What inspired you to write a second edition book?
Because I had to. Because downtown is so fabulous. I couldn't let it be without me having to write more about it, because I have to. It's such an inspiring place, architecturally, physically. It's the individual buildings, and then it's how they all fit together to form streetscapes and the new plazas and all. I had to celebrate it.
Yeah.
And that's what the book really is, celebrating the history and evolution of this extraordinary place.
Yeah. And I love that I was able to experience and read it, because people that are like me, I was county raised and I was never in the city to experience those things and never understand and pronounce street names that are down here. And so me being able to see all the different beautiful photos that you have in the book, being able to experience those through your book, being able to feel like I'm in those places and see like things that have went down in history here. Like it's actually phenomenal and interesting that, you know, it's so much, because nowadays people don't read like they used to. You know, they kind of just get on the internet and try to find their information. But to know like that you took the time out to put all this together, it's so cool. So what have been some of the things that you've wrote about in this book that have been your favorite things to learn about?
Oh my goodness. I have in recent years spent a lot of time studying the very earliest history of downtown. And that goes from our founding in 1764 up through the Louisiana Purchase. That those first decades, when we were a French settlement that was governed by a distant Spanish colonial government. And to the east was eventually American territory. You think the people who were founding this city, they were, again, French, ruled by Spanish, Americans across the river, and then they're building a trading network with the Native Americans.
Yeah.
What a remarkable group of people these were. And they set this up to be a center, a focal point of a vast network of trade that extended all the way from the Appalachians to the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
And yet we were over 1,000 river miles from real civilization in this isolated place. And there was so much excitement here. What a remarkable story. And then you look at downtown and you think, for the first 100 years, almost all of St. Louis is now what is downtown.
Yeah.
You have all the trade on the riverfront. Here, where we are at this beautiful Union Station, this was out in common fields. So part of downtown was farm fields where they grew maize and oats and wheat. They grazed about 250 horses and about 12 to 1,500 cattle in what's now downtown St. Louis.
Yeah.
So that was part of the story that was surprising to me, to learn about those early years, what I've been studying recently, and to see how that evolved into this downtown that is filled with places like this fabulous Union Station, which is a palace. In Europe, these would have been palaces, but here they are public places.
And I was going to say, reading about Union Station, like they had grand opening of the Union Station was between 45 to 50,000 people. And I think it's cool to read that and then experience how they've redone everything that's here now It's like, wow, like they've came a long way to see all these beautiful things, the
That's
beautiful
right.
backgrounds and all of that. So.
And it's all restored. In this building, now the head house, which we are in, stretches 600 feet along Market, in essence, two city blocks. And we're in the grand hall, which was the waiting hall when you had a long delay in between trains. And it is enhanced with the great artwork and crafts of the late Victorian era. We have the beautiful stained glass behind us, which was done by a St. Louis company. And you see St. Louis is the woman in the center in her toga, and behind her is the old courthouse. And on the right, we have New York, and on the left, San Francisco with the orange groves. See the orange trees there? Yeah. And so that was showing us at the center of this rail network that was connecting the nation. We have magnificent plasterwork here, gold gilt all over. The faience tiles, their mosaics, all the artwork and crafts of the late Victorian era are expressed in some way in this magnificent hall.
So I have a question for you. How long did it take you to do this research and learn about every little detail that you're telling me now? Because like it's a lot to learn, and even like talking to my father about some of those things, I'm like, Dad, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. It sounds cool, but how long did it take you to do those things, take the time to read about those, and then see how much of St. Louis has those things that you learned about?
Well, I really started when I was 13 on this, and I'm now 67, so it tells you it
You're
took
not
a
21.
really long time. Yeah,
21 forever.
Over a half a century. Yeah, this book took a half a century to research and write. Okay, that's yeah, it doesn't happen quickly.
No,
and
not at
I
all.
was always digging, and it's like those things I learned about the early French. They are in records that some were kept in Spanish, some in French, that then in the 1840s were translated to English and handwritten out. In the 1840s, when they were going through all these old land disputes and settling who actually owned what land. And so that's why they were translated. And then they were transcribed during the 1930s, and many of them typed on cards about that big. And they're at the old courthouse. And so here were all these records of this whole region, because St. Louis was the governmental center of this French territory, French settled, Spanish controlled territory. So I went through about 2,000 of those documents.
Oh my gosh.
And they are fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Now, you going through all of these documents and learning all this information, have you ever personally like sat back and were like, man, I wish I was here to experience this in real life?
Yes, yes. And there are several times. I would have liked to have been all over St. Louis, really, on December 7th and 8th of 1941.
Okay.
Because people had such resolve. And they knew once Pearl Harbor was attacked that they had to address it. Yeah. And from every soul, knew. So the morning of December 8th, Monday morning, the old federal courthouse, it's now the Mel Carnahan building just down the street from here, there were lines of young men outside that building. It was the federal courthouse, Court and Customs House, built in 1935. Beautiful Art Deco building, still there, beautiful building. The young men were lined up waiting to enlist in the U.S. military.
Wow.
Because they knew our country had been attacked.
Yeah.
And they had to do something. those moments of resolve are just incredible.
I'll say my favorite thing that I've read in the book that really connected me personally, my mom used to work at Famous Bar.
Oh my goodness.
And she was there for years, and she was in at the Lee Bridgeton area. So
Okay.
I never knew personally anything about Famous Bar besides I could buy clothes there.
Yeah.
We would get a discount. So me reading about Famous Bar and like that it was downtown, it was like
that's where it started.
I had no idea like all this stuff.
See, the other stuff is later. That the suburban malls don't come until after the suburban shops are after World War II, but for more than half a century, Famous and Bar was stamped.
Yeah.
This was it, and it had everything. And the building, the Railway Exchange building, you look at that building, and it is sheathed in ornamental terracotta. Everywhere you look, there are designs, beautiful features in this cream-colored terracotta. It was known as the building with no back door, no backside. It had 4 fronts, fills an entire block, and it's beautiful on all sides. And the deliveries were made over a block away. Wow. And everything came in through tunnels into the store because you couldn't have a backside to that building.
Wow.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then speaking of beautiful, you stated in the book that St. Louis constructed every building, every store to be a thing of beauty. So that's something that stuck out to me. I love that you said that. Why do you feel that it is important for you to be able to show St. Louisians that the city is literally a work of art?
It is. Well, that's just it, because it's right under our noses, and so many people, now we have 2 generations raised in the suburbs who don't know that this thing of beauty is right here. And my goal with all my work is get people in here and see what's right here and participate in it. You know, people travel off to Europe and see so much wonderful stuff. And yet they don't realize that over on 7th Street is the Wainwright Building. And that is Louis Sullivan's masterpiece that showed people across the world how to build tall. There were 2 deterrents to building tall. One was vertical transportation. 19th century, we had the elevator. The other thing was steel frame construction. Before then, the base of the wall had to be wide enough and strong enough to support the height. Well, what happens is with a steel frame or a steel skeleton, the walls are like curtains to keep out the elements, but they don't have to, the base of the wall doesn't have to support the whole height of the wall. So now we can build tall. Well, early on when they started building taller, they just repeated the decoration. And so they look kind of like wedding cakes. Louis Sullivan, the great Chicago architect, did not build the first skyscraper, spiritual skyscraper in Chicago. He built it here on 7th Street. So that's right here. So a friend of mine, Yolanda Hammond, she's a city dweller forever. She met her husband, Peter, from England because he was an architect, and he made a point of coming to St. Louis. This man, raised in London, came to St. Louis to see the Wainwright Building.
Wow.
And then he met my friend and never left, okay? And that's 60 years ago. But it shows you that people in other places appreciate what we have often more than we appreciate it.
And I love that you wrote this book because obviously it shows how much you appreciate St. Louis, and me being able to read the book, shows how much I didn't appreciate St. Louis.
Well, now you will. And see, that brings me great joy. That brings me great joy.
So what are some of the challenges that you personally face with writing the book, being able to figure out how to connect other people the same way that you connect with learning about St. Louis?
Well, one of the things was we look at downtown. It's so gorgeous, but too often we look at it as cold architectural studies. No, it is a neighborhood, an ever-changing and evolving neighborhood. Originally, it was a French neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was residences, humble pioneer residences, and farmland and trade. Then it evolves into having brick buildings and brick streets, and starts to have more residences around the riverfront, not just on the riverfront. So it evolves as more of a neighborhood. By the end of the 19th century, it is becoming more and more commercial, with giant commercial buildings and commercial palaces and civic palaces. You have this great Union Station, the rail station. You have the beautiful old post office, begun in 1872, modeled after the Palace of Versailles, with the roof line and all, with the mansard roofs. Our city hall, that is this another civic palace, modeled after the City Hall of Paris. And inside, you've got to go inside and see that rotunda. It is extraordinary. 4 stories and all this white marble. I've got to admit, I had to go to the county government center in Clayton.
The way you said it.
And it was a shocking experience, because I'm used to going into our city hall, that you walk into it and you know it's a significant place. You know important things happen there. And you know they happened there and they will happen in the future. You are a part of history when you walk in this great building, okay?
It's completely
and
opposite
I had
for you.
to go to a historic preservation hearing, and I'm looking around, and first of all, you go in City Hall and there's the rotunda and things radiate from it. And I kept looking for, well, where am I? Where are things happening? And then I realized that the escalator was the centerpiece of the county government center. And it was just shocking.
It makes me feel bad.
Well, no, just go see. You are now part of our, you have discovered downtown. So you will go into our city hall. It is all of our city hall.
And my eyes will like light up, like, oh my gosh, I don't have this in the county.
You will be dumbfounded. But you have that, our city library. Oh my goodness. Now, that's built in 1912 and just exquisite, exquisite. So these are just, they're remarkable, and they're right here.
Yeah.
You go to Laclede's Landing and you go see the old warehouses, the really early ones, and in there the wood, you see these huge timbers, and much of them were from cypress, from the swamps in southeast Missouri. They came from 1,000-year-old trees. We will, even if we had the skills, no matter how much money you have, the skills, people don't have the skills, but even if we had the skills, we'll never have the building materials again for these buildings. So we're so fortunate that our civic ancestors built so well and with such care that these are gifts from our civic ancestors.
Definitely. And I think being able to experience and read about it makes me realize, oh my gosh, why have I been looking to go out of town when I don't even know where I live, you know?
Well, that's a very insightful remark, because one of the things I did when I got through school was I decided that I worked a lot of weekends, and then I would take off a weekday, and every week I would have a day of explore St. Louis. And I thought I knew St. Louis really well, because I always was exploring, but to dedicate,
I was the same.
you dedicate a whole day toward just exploring. So, but again, it was always this neighborhood. It's this great architecture, but it's all this life that goes on in it. you know, one time downtown was almost all commercial neighborhood, commercial and industrial.
Mm.
Now it's a residential
Mhm.
neighborhood as well as commercial neighborhood. It keeps changing,
Yeah.
but it's a neighborhood. So you got, what other neighborhood has architecture like this?
Not mine.
Well, is there any, you know, that has this scale of dramatic, beautiful architecture that is part of your day-to-day life?
Yeah. I love how passionate you are, like, about St. Louis, period. Like, it's like, to feel that energy that you're bringing over here, it's great. You know, a lot of people, I think so down on St. Louis and kind of look at the news and the negative things about the city, and you have something where you can, you know, uplift and show people like there's more here than
There is
just
so much here.
Yeah.
There is so much here, and there is so much beauty, and that's the danger just with the idea of news. We look at the negative,
Yeah.
and that is what news is. It's the negative, and it's hard to keep things in perspective.
Mhm.
And that is the challenge,
Yeah.
is keeping things in perspective, and we need to learn how to do that with everything we do.
For sure. NiNi, this has been fun. I've been excited. Like, this has been great. This is definitely something St. Louis needs to read. Take the time, look at the beautiful photos, like everything about. I loved everything that you did. Honestly,
Oh,
like,
well, thank you, my
and
dear.
honestly, I have not read a book, actually, like, held a book in a long time, and this has been an experience because I was a reader when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know, over time, you get these iPads and you get all these social media, and it kind of, you forget how it feels to hold
There's
a book.
something about holding
Yeah.
a book and that turning the page and having each
Yes.
page have another
And
surprise for
seeing
you.
on each page every picture, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not like scrolling down social media, Facebook, and seeing that picture pop up. It's totally a different experience. So I hope that everybody takes the time to look at the book. Where can people find more information or purchase the
Reedy
book?
Press, you can buy it through Reedy Press. You can check my website, and I will do curbside delivery. You drive down the street, and I run out, and we do a little exchange just like it's a restaurant. But you can always just order it through Reedy Press.
Okay, sounds good. It's MonneXo, 94XO. Make sure you guys press like and hit subscribe, and we are out. Be easy.